Welcome back to another episode of Not Even D2, the podcast covering Division III sports through interviews with those involved in Division III. On today's
Yo,
episode,
yo, yo, yo. What you doing, bro?
what's up?
You gotta tell them subscribe to the pod.
Oh, that's on me. That's on me. That's a good shout. Yeah, if you watching on YouTube, make sure to subscribe to the pod, man. And if you listen on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, make sure you're following the show. We really appreciate it. If you got time, rate the show, give us 5 stars. You know it's a banger episode coming.
For sure, for sure. That's how that's how you follow us. Just follow us on Instagram at not even D2. Subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, like KJ said. That's how you support the channel at the end of the day.
Yes, sir. On today's episode, we have former Division III Player of the Year, Alex Sobel, who transferred from Middlebury in his last year to Sacred Heart, who plays in the NEC. And, we're recording on a Sunday. This episode is not going to be released till Thursday, so the national championship and D1 will be over. But we wanted to talk about some March Madness and give a little spotlight to Division III players or coaches that are now making big moves in March Madness and has their team in the Division One March Madness. So I'm gonna start, and I want to talk about Brad Brownwell. He's the Clemson coach, and they just recently lost in the Elite Eight to Alabama. Had a great year, but Brad actually started his playing career at DePaul University. Something interesting is DePaul, I don't know what they're doing, their education system, but they produce two really high level coaches, and Brad Stevens and Brad Brownwell. So that's interesting. He went there from 1988 to 1991. And I was just looking for some statistics on his seasons. Couldn't really find anything, but I came across this video, and they actually made it to the national championship. They were playing against University of Rochester, right? And they were down by 1 with like 10 seconds to go, and Brad has the ball. He's dribbling down. He goes up, and the ball like slips out of his hands, bro. So he never actually got the shot up, and they end up losing by 1.
Man.
So he was one shot away from being a D3 hero and a national champion. But nonetheless, he's making big moves. He coached at DePaul for a few years, and in 2010, he got the job for Clemson playing in the ACC. Like I said, they had a great run, made it to the Elite Eight. So now that I know that there's some D3 history, I'm definitely going to start supporting Clemson a little bit more, even though they're in the same conference as my Syracuse Orange.
Yeah, I mean, Clemson had a great run, like you said, this year in the NCAA tournament, ended up losing, but regardless, great coach. And obviously, it seems like he had a great history, too, with the game of basketball. The guy that I found, he's a pretty popular guy, I'd say. He's been around, the coaching ranks for a while. Shaka Smart. Shaka Smart, man. He's been at VCU. He's been at Texas. He's now at Marquette. He's just had a bunch of different stops. But his connection goes way back to his playing days. And his playing days, he played in the Midwest in at Kenyon College, which is a small little school in Ohio. It's a really good academic school. And he played there for 4 years. He was a 3-year captain. So that shows a lot about his leadership. And now he's the head coach of a Division I men's team. So it's not, you're not surprised by stuff like that. And actually, an interesting fact that I found out about him, one, he graduated magna cum laude in 1999, which is I think it's top year class. And he studied history. But also, he holds the single season record for assists and has the career records for most assists in a season at Kenyon College. So he was, reading the game. So now he was reading the game as a PG, and now he's reading the game as a coach. So definitely one of the brightest minds that we got in college basketball right now, and it's crazy to see the D3 connections with him.
Yeah, good. That's a good catch. I'm going to talk about my next person, Kevin Keats. He's the head coach at North Carolina State, and they really had one of the most historic runs that college basketball has ever seen. But before we talk about that, he started at Ferrum College, I should say, a little small school in Virginia. I'm going to show a little picture of him back in the day. That's pretty funny. But he went there from 1992 to 1995. He's a part of the only team to ever make the NCAA tournament at Ferrum College. So more historic numbers and records for him. He began his coaching career right after he was done playing in the 1995-96 season at Ferrum College. So that says a lot, being able to just jump from a player and then the coaching staff wants you to stay there and continue coaching. And then he was also named into the Hall of Fame at Ferrum College for all he's done in the coaching world. He's now at NC State. Like I said, historic run. They played in every division there's a conference tournament, and if you win your conference tournament, you make it to the NCAA March Madness. And NC State was a low seed in the ACC, so the ACC play consecutive days in the tournament. They started on the 13th and played 5 consecutive days, so 5 games in 5 days, won it all, won the ACC tournament, and then was the 11 seed in March Madness, the NCAA tournament, and nobody expecting them to make it past the first round, let alone making it all the way to the Final Four, where they just lost to number 1 seed Purdue. But it was just a crazy run. A lot of those guys like DJ Burns made a name for himself, and he's definitely going to see some NBA money coming soon. So shout out to Kevin Keats and North Carolina State, another ACC team I got to start rooting for now, bro.
Yeah, you might have to start rooting for more teams other than the Cuse. One thing I'm kind of wondering about, and it's kind of just in my head as you're talking. Sam talked a lot about how in his episode how, when he would travel to these D3 facilities or G League facilities and Division I facilities, how he was blown away because of what we had at Division III. At the Division III level with Wesleyan and the facilities that we have our respective schools. And it makes me just think about it, just like this year's NC State team, like they just play with toughness, bro. You know what I mean? And that comes from the coach. And the coach, obviously, like you're saying, has these D3 connections and started from the metaphorical bottom and made it all the way to the Division I level and is, really probably turned that program around for the better. So that's just a little like note I was thinking about while you were talking. But my next coach that I found, that had D3 connections was TJ Otzelberger. And TJ Otzelberger is the coach for Iowa State who lost in the Sweet 16 this past year. They lost to Illinois. And Iowa State was a really well-coached team. I mean, they won, I'm pretty sure, the Big 12 conference, which is, they added Houston this year. So the Big 12 conference is really good. And they're one of the top seeds in the country. And, TJ, he's been at Iowa State for a while. Like, he was on the staff for like 13, 14 years. But he played at Wisconsin Whitewater. And, he had a pretty good role on the team. Wisconsin Whitewater was pretty solid back then when he was playing. But definitely his coaching career has been a lot better just in terms of the records and what he's done, to help the game, honestly.
Yeah. This really just shows like how many great basketball minds there are in Division III. Like they started at the Division III level and just kept working their way up, and now they're one of the best coaches. Like the Iowa State coach that you just mentioned, I know that he's a finalist for the Naismith Coach of the Year. So that's only given the finalist is only between 4 coaches in all of Division I. So that really just says a lot about the type of basketball minds and talent we have at Division III.
Facts.
But we didn't even talk about it. The game is tomorrow. Obviously, our predictions are gonna be released after the game is over. But who you got? We got number 1 seed Purdue versus number 1 UConn.
Man, I think it's just gonna be a battle, bro. Honestly, from start to finish. You got 2 dominant bigs with Edey and Clinigan, but man, I saw UConn play against Marquette in the Big East final at MSG, man, and like they're just deep and they're just well coached. You know what I'm saying? Like they could just throw numbers at you of guys that play hard and that will run their offense the correct way and that will play together. And I just feel like they might have too much for Purdue tomorrow. You know what I mean? Because I feel like there were stretches, during the game against NC State where like some of their role players, some Purdue's role players were not like shooting well, and they had to really rely on Edey as they've been doing the whole year, and it's got them to this point. But UConn is like, that's a team right there. Like they all play well together and they all play hard. So it's like, I think it's just going to be UConn to go back to back, which is crazy to hear about in college basketball.
Yeah, I mean, going back to back is crazy, but I'm with you. I got UConn. I think that Dan Hurley is making a name for himself as one of the best coaches to ever coach the game of basketball. I really got a lot of respect for him, the energy he brings to each game. And like you said, Purdue, I didn't think that they were going to get this far. They play a lot of basketball through Edey, and I think Klingon is going to be able to battle with him down low, so that's going to stop a lot of his scoring. And then it's all up to the role players. And like you said, UConn is just a little bit more deep, and I like all of UConn starting 5. I think can at least go pro, but definitely like there's some real NBA buzz for players like Steven Castle and Donovan Clingan. So I'm definitely interested to see this game tomorrow. So
Yeah.
we're locked in. We both got UConn. Hopefully we don't look crazy on air when this releases. But I want to, since the season's over, D1 season's about to wrap up as well. I want to talk a little about the off season for Utica and Alfred, where we go to school, and just start with like what Utica's off season workouts and what you guys are doing throughout the off season.
Yeah, man. I mean, so, after the season, because our season obviously extends a little bit longer, or at least this year, rather, it's extended, it went a little bit longer. So we didn't have like a lot of our exit meetings with the coaches until after we came back from spring break. So, once we met with the coaches and, players kind of found out what they needed to work on and, where they were standing for the upcoming year, we just kind of got right to work in the weight room. We have a great, strength coach here, Nate Fretzel, who's actually the cousin of our assistant coach, Luke Fretzel. But yeah, so we just got right to work with him. Coffee, has specific goals for us this year in terms of how he wants us to look and play. So that starts right in the weight room. And then just for playing wise, like, a couple of the seniors that graduated are still around here right now, like Justice and Luke. So they've been coming to, pick up and still like working out with some of the real newer generation of Utica basketball players. Like they just been helping us out and, getting shots up, whatever it may be. So that's really it, just working hard in the weight room and then getting in the court where we can.
Yeah, that's tough. I'm thinking like it seems like yesterday, because we're in the same grade, that we were freshmen. Like we were the new generation of Utica and Alfred basketball players, and now we're like seniors. So do you think like, is that in your mind? Like I got to take a step with my leadership, or are you just still coasting through?
Yeah, man. I think that's a really good question. So for me, just when it comes to my leadership role, like, I feel like I try to show leadership just with the way that I work. So like if I'm in the weight room, like I try to work hard and try to lift a lot of weight and push myself. And when I'm on the court, I'm trying to go 100%, put in my full effort. But regardless, I just try to step up and be, a voice, when I could speak on things in the locker room and help out the younger guys too, just with stuff that I've seen, like over the course of my, time here.
Yeah. Definitely. And like when I was a freshman, I had not the biggest role, but I had a pretty significant role on the team.
Mm-hmm.
But I always looked up to, even if players didn't play 40 minutes a game, if they were in the gym all the time, that really showed me the ropes to how to be like successful in the Division III game. So I respect everybody who's at this level, no matter if you're playing 40 minutes or 0 minutes.
Yeah.
Transitioning into a little about what Alfred's doing this offseason. We have the exit meetings just like you guys. It was a little sooner, obviously. We got after it. One thing I respect about Coach Kemphy is he's going to keep it like 100% straight with you. Like if he thinks that you need to work on something that you think you're doing the best at, then he's still going to tell you like, this is where I'm seeing. I might have a difference of opinion, but I'm going to be 100% what I'm seeing. So I respect coaches like that are just going to be honest with you. We have lifts like 2 to 3 times a week. We're led by Casey in the weight room, and he's pushing us 100%. I can definitely see all the guys getting a little bit stronger. I'm pushing weight now too. So it's definitely going to be a fun offseason going into next season. We return a lot. So I'm excited to see what Alfred produces for the 2024-25 season. But to end this little intro, talk back to Alex Sobel. Like I said, Division III Player of the Year last year, 2023. Second team NEC at the Division I level. So his jump, he didn't take any time. He was just dominant right away. He was 5th in the nation in blocks. So dude is just a really skilled basketball player. What you take away from this episode?
Yeah, I think he just has an appreciation for the game. That's kind of the sense that I got. You know what I mean? Like he respects the game. He puts in work. And he wants to get better. He wants to play against the top, competition. And, talking to some of his former teammates, like my boy JB, just hearing about who he is as a teammate, just how he's very competitive when he needs to be and will help you and will be hard on you if you needs to be. Like, it just sounds like he's an overall good teammate. And I could see that, when talking to him. It's clear that he takes the game serious. So.
Yeah. So we definitely talk a lot with Alex, regarding the transition from D3 to D1, what it was like winning Player of the Year, any challenges he went through going into Sacred Heart, and stay tuned for what's next for him, whether he's gonna go to the professional level or call it quits. So thanks for tuning in to another episode. Make sure to subscribe to the pod, and let's get into the conversation with Alex. All right, we're here with Alex. How you feeling today, bro?
Feeling all right.
Appreciate you joining the show. It means a lot.
Yeah, I'm excited to be on.
Yes, sir. So, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, like, what have you been up to, like, since the season ended? Like, what's life been like for Alex Sobel?
Mostly rehabbing my ankle and watching games. That's been most of it, to be honest. A lot of good basketball on. It's bittersweet to watch, but I'm not gonna not watch. So,
yeah. Are you able to like fill out a bracket and stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, I have no eligibility left, so regular citizen, I could do whatever.
Yeah. Did you do one?
I did, yeah. I got UConn over Creighton in the final. UConn over Creighton.
Bro, why is everybody so high on Creighton? I'm not a fan.
They got like three guys all scoring at a high rate, and their center is like he's a beast defending the rim. So we'll see. And I kind of just I didn't want to do 2-1 seeds, like a little strategy to win my pool.
Word.
One thing I'm wondering about, did you watch any of the D3 tournament or no?
I watched a little. Actually, one of my roommates. Actually, no, that's not relevant. One of my roommates' dad is the coach of Wesleyan, who's traditionally in the tournament. So neither Middlebury nor Wesleyan, my two biggest rooting interests, were in the D3 tournament. So I did watch it, though. I watched NYU Tufts and a little bit of Trinity's semifinal game.
Word. Well, let's get into it. So obviously you committed to Middlebury, and it's a NESCAC school. Some people say it's the Ivy League for D3, but Middlebury is about 6 hours from where you're from in Saltakit, New York. So what was appealing about Middlebury, and was it always Middlebury for you, or were you like trying to stay closer to home? Talk to me about your thought process committing to college.
Yeah, I was definitely prioritizing like it being a good academic school at the time. Also, both my parents went to Middlebury, so that played a big factor. But I was also looking at Swarthmore, which is near Philly, and in Amherst a little bit. So, but yeah, I mean, I really liked Coach Brown when I visited, and the team when I went up there. So it became a good choice.
Or did your parents play any sports at Middlebury or no?
My dad played rugby, and my mom briefly rugby too, apparently, but not basketball.
Word. So you mentioned Coach Jeff Brown, and honestly, he's one of the best coaches in Division III. He's been around for a long time.
I think you could just say college basketball.
College basketball, yeah. I mean, he's been around for 27 years, and he has 4 NESCAC championships. He advanced to the NCAA semifinals in 2011. He's been around. So I just wanted to know, like, what stood out about him among other coaches?
Well, I've been pretty lucky in that I think I've had a lot of great coaches, basically at all phases of my basketball career. But I think he really garners like a different level of respect, just like walking around like the athletic center at Middlebury. Just the way he carries himself. It is inspiring. Like, he just has a lot of professionalism. And like kind of like we're here to do our job type mentality.
So you played a lot of, in your 4-year career at Middlebury, you played a lot of high profile games where, you're playing against top teams in Division III. And there's one specific game that I wanted to talk to you about, the Keene State game. You had 31-16 against what at that point was an undefeated Keene State team. So I want you to talk a little bit about that game, but also talk about like what is your mindset going into those top games that you guys are playing at Middlebury.
Yeah, I mean that game was definitely, I could probably say like the highlight, or at least one of the highlights of my basketball career. Like it was a really fun environment. But I just remember like, especially up until that point, like I felt like we had across the previous seasons and that season had just like lost the big games. Like we had a great record every year, like won 75% plus of our games, but like the biggest games, like we had just fallen short. So like before, like I remember like saying to the guys, I was like, yeah, like we've had a reputation, like that this shit ends now. Like this is where we like get that win. And that was awesome. Like it was a crazy game. And we had a lot of guys who make huge plays, so it was fun.
Yeah. Like Ruda said, you had some big games at the Division III level, but it wasn't always that easy. Your first year, you only averaged 6 points and 6 rebounds, and each year after that, your stats continued to jump. So in your third year, I'm gonna skip your second because it was COVID, but in your third year, you averaged 18 points and 12 rebounds with 87 blocks, and then your final year when you won D3 Player of the Year, NESCAC Defensive Player of the Year, you had 107 blocks and you averaged 19 points and 12 rebounds. So I'm curious what you were kind of working on over the offseason to keep elevating your game and continue to play at a high level.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me was playing at a high level over the summer. I really like seeked out and sought out just like the best competition available, like on Long Island, which there is some pretty great competition. Like I'm lucky. So yeah, I would say that's by far the biggest contributor. Is I got a lot of games, probably like 40 games, 30, 40 games a summer, just across different leagues, like at different levels, but 5 or 10 really with like legit pro-am Division I pro guys. And I think that just, when you get into a game like Keene State, like you're ready to go, you're not phased because you've played, you played 20 games this summer with what's a 1-possession game with 2 minutes to go. Whereas, you could be freaking out, but like, all right, I've been here before. I think that was a big one, and working on your body is the other thing. I think junior to senior year, just really lifting seriously for the first time in my career. Like I really hadn't in high school or even my first couple of years. But I think I was, motivated after my junior year to take that leap.
More on like the basketball side of things, on social media, you see a lot of guards working out. That's what's like popular, them being shifty, explosive guards. But I'm curious, as a big, what are bigs working on in the off season? Like certain post moves, stepping out to the outside. What were you focused on? Your touch? Talk to me about that.
Yeah, a lot of touch work. I feel like that's always been my strength, and I've always tried to keep it my strength. But I mean, there's a lot of like creativity in the post, and but to really have good creativity, like anyone could be creative. Like you can only be like effectively creative to moves that you've done before. Like, not many guys are going to be like efficiently making up moves in the middle of a game and having the shot go down. It's like, the guys that have a rep of like, they have great post work. It's because they've done each of those moves 1,000 or 10,000 times. So like when they're spinning back, if they've taken that shot, but yeah, I mean, I haven't, formally trained, so to say, with a trainer that much. I think that might change a little bit going forward in my career, but I've it's expensive. So like I've done it when I can. And, but I wouldn't say, it's like the guards where you're like doing like, 15 like hezzies and stuff like that. It's a lot closer to the rim. And I've always been like very like maybe too much like practice within myself. And even like sometimes when I do go to trainers, like I'll like stop and they'll be like, all right, like I'm not going to do this. So yeah.
Yeah. Talking about your transition to Sacred Heart, obviously the transfer portal is a crazy world in today's day and age. I read earlier that last year, the year you entered the portal, every conference in Division I lost at least 15% of their players, and at least 6 conferences lost 30% of their players. So as a Division III athlete, what was the transfer portal like for you trying to get to a higher division? And were you expecting to go to Division I, or like were you still thinking Division II maybe?
I had a feeling that, that Division I was going to be an option, being like the player of the year. And there was a slight precedent in the conference with the guys Sam Peak the year before. Yeah, there's a lot of interest, but maybe but guys are skeptical. Like even so, like some of the assistants that were like really high on me maybe like had a hard time convincing like their head coach if the head coach wasn't really aware of like, the talent of D3 at the top.
Yeah. Similar question to what we led with. What kind of schools were recruiting you when you were in the portal, and was it always Sacred Heart for you, or were you thinking I might go to a different school?
It became Sacred Heart pretty quickly, but yeah, I got a lot of scattered interests, like Iona for a while, who has a coach that coached in the NESCAC at one point, but I only really took the visit to Sacred Heart. So
Respect.
So once you knew that you were going to Sacred Heart and took your visit and whatnot, you arrived on campus for summer workouts. So I just wanted to ask you, what were summer workouts like for you at Sacred Heart, and what were kind of the opening challenges for you as you transitioned from the D3 level to the Division I level?
Yeah, I mean the summer session, we didn't have that at Middlebury, so like it was very demanding on your body. Like right when I got there, that was one thing I noticed. And then it was a lot of lifting. Like we lifted at Middlebury, but not like before practice, like we did almost every day at Sacred Heart. So that was a little wake up call. It took me like a week or two before I felt like I got killed the first day, and it took my body like 2 weeks to like catch up. So I kind of had not the best first week of practice, and then I turned it up.
Yeah, you were obviously coming off of a Division III Player of the Year, so you're one of the best players in Division III. But transferring obviously to Division I, it's a different level, more talent collectively. So, what were your initial goals entering Sacred Heart?
Yeah, that's a good question, because like I was talking about that with my dad. Like in my mind, like I would have been maybe disappointed, but I would have understood if I had like a reserve role and just like contributed to a winning team. Like that's what I really got sold on, was like the potential of Sacred Heart. Like we need a big, where we think we're primed to go. We're going to be preseason #1 in the league. Like we think you can help us contribute. I would say I outperformed what they could have reasonably hoped for. But that has kind of taught me, like, I feel like at a lot of points in my career, like, or not my career, my life, I've just like been maybe underestimated myself a little bit, because I was coming in like, all right, I'd be good with like, it's Division I basketball. It's a big leap from Division III. Like there's a chance I don't even play. I don't even crack the rotation. So yeah.
Yeah, you definitely exceeded playing way more, finished second team in the NEC, but we're going to talk a little more Division I basketball after the break. All right, we're back. Obviously, Sacred Heart Division I school, but it's not as big of a school as some of the high major schools you played, like St. John's and Providence in the Big East. And you had a great game against Providence, 16 points and 6 rebounds. So talk to me about what the experience of playing those type of schools were compared to other D1 schools and compared to other D3 schools.
Yeah, I mean, those for like kind of the first time in my career, like when you go into a game like that, the expectations are a little different. Like you're getting paid to go play them, and you're going to lose like most of the time. But Providence, we really kept it close. I mean, it was really fun because huge arena, 9,000 people there. it was really fun. Even though they didn't go great, Providence we really competed, and that was a lot of fun.
Word. Were those crowds like a crazy environment, or was it just like regular?
It was pretty crazy. Yeah, I mean St. John's, they have a lot of energy right now with Pitino back in New York. So that game was pretty crazy. We kind of got punched early, unfortunately. But it's just like different. Like Jay Wright's announcing it, and like you got these like, basketball personalities that you've seen on TV your whole life, in the flesh, like right there. So feels important. It's cool.
Word.
That's tough.
Say one thing I'm kind of wondering about is you obviously started like your season very well at Sacred Heart, with some double digit games in the first 10 games. But I'm kind of just wondering, what were your initial challenges at first, like with the adjustment to that level?
Well, the first game was at Iona, and it was pretty raw. Like, it was a pretty crazy environment, probably the craziest up until that point in my career. And I didn't close the game. That was like the first and only game really that I didn't close the whole year. So like I hadn't really convinced the staff, I guess, yet at that point, that I was the player that I was. So yeah, that first day, but I remain confident in the coaches. Where like, yeah, like we still think you're like a important piece for us. And then the next game I had a pretty solid game against Holy Cross. So.
Word. You were a great defensive player in the Division III level. You won NESCAC Player of the Year your senior year, but that also transitioned into your career at Sacred Heart, where you were 5th in the nation in blocks per game, and you averaged 2.8. So where did you learn the importance of defense?
My high school coach was he's a really good defensive coach. He consistently leads Long Island in like points per game allowed, despite not always having like a lot of pure basketball guys. It's a school that a lot of the best athletes play other sports. So yeah, I think he taught me some great defensive principles. But all my coaches, this guy Mark Parody, who lives up in Vermont, has taught me some blocking technique. I'll just give him a little shout out because he taught me that sometimes it's better to let a guy go and get it once they're past you, especially when you're in foul trouble. Because I have good length, so a lot of guys think that they're there, and then you can sneak up there and pin it.
Word.
Yeah. One thing I'm wondering about, you talked a lot about how at Sacred Heart, or even if other coaches that were recruiting, you never really knew what type of talent you were, and even you had to prove it to them. So what would be your biggest piece of advice for like any player kind of going through that? Like, how did you get through those moments where like you had to build the trust of your coaches?
Yeah, I mean, at some point it just comes down to performance. Like you got to perform well in practice, and you got to perform well in the games. And if you feel you're doing that, then keep doing it, because I know a lot of guys think and say to me that like they feel like they're being slighted by their coach for whatever reason, and it just doesn't make sense. Like they're all generally, I'm sure there are cases, but for the most part, everyone's there to win. And if you're proving that you can help them do that, you'll get your time.
Another thing that KJ and I were talking about, just when we were writing up the questions, just the differences of what it's like being an athlete and at Middlebury, where that's a school called, like, it's a mini Ivy, like KJ said in the beginning, or even like Sacred Heart, where it's a lot more students that go there. It's obviously in a very different location. It's not in the middle of nowhere in Vermont. So my question, like I said, is what was the biggest differences being a student athlete at Middlebury versus Sacred Heart?
The time commitment required for like your sport is just the minimum level. Like a lot of guys put in extra work at the NESCACs. Like they take their sports really seriously, and across all of D3. But like the required time commitment at Sacred Heart was a lot higher because in Middlebury, and I think the NESCAC specifically, like you can really only technically be with your team for like 2 hours of instructional time per day, but those rules are different for D1. So like we would have a lift and a film session and a practice, and it would be like a good like 4 or 5 hour block, which I liked. Like it was fun, and like I was happy to be there, and it felt, it really felt like a Division I program. Like there were a lot of guys, a lot of coaches there, 4 or 5 coaches, strength coach, trainer. You're communicating with them every day, and it was really a team effort the whole time. Whereas Middlebury, and I think we had a lot of success in this way. Like it was just, if you wanted to do more than the 2 hours of practice per week during the season, it had to all be player led. So we would organize pickup, which is something that they don't do at Sacred Heart, and I think hurts them. Like the players themselves. Although now with the transfer portal, like the way the teams are in the offseason is different. Like a lot of guys aren't in the team within a couple of days of the season ending. But I would say those are the bigger differences.
And KJ and I were talking when we were developing questions, and we saw, like you talked about, a lot of the high profile games that you may have played in, or the accomplishments that you have in your college career, 5 years playing. So we were just both wondering, what's your most proud accomplishment in your college career?
I would probably have to go the Division III National Player of the Year. I think that's like, or Division I scholarship. I mean, it's tough. I'm lucky to have accomplished a couple things. But hopefully I'm not done. I'm still planning on playing, so we will see.
Yeah, let's talk about that. So what are the future goals for Alex? Obviously, you just won second team NEC at the Division I level. You were 5th in the nation in blocks. So what is your mindset, and where are you trying to go with this basketball game?
Yeah, I actually just signed an agent the other day. So
congrats.
That was an interesting process, kind of like recruiting again. So it was fun. And so the goal is to play. That's going to be overseas almost definitely. Maybe I'll be able to sneak into an NBA pre-draft workout or two, but I'm realistic in that I'm not an NBA player as it currently stands. So we'll see. I'm excited to have a fun experience overseas if all things go well next year.
Yeah, that's tough, bro. Keep grinding. We're gonna end this episode with a little rapid fire and starting 5 edition. Let us know when you're ready for rapid fire.
I'm good to go.
So my first rapid fire question for you is, name top 3 shot blockers of all time.
I will go pure shot blockers. I'll go Mutombo, Elijah, and Gobert doesn't get as many blocks, but I'm just gonna include him because of rim protection.
I don't know, bro. I'm saying Wemby over Gobert already.
Yeah, I mean, with that wingspan, you might be right.
My next rapid fire question for you: who was your funniest teammate at Middlebury and Sacred Heart?
Middlebury, this guy named Dean Smith. He's a fan favorite, as the announcer likes to say. But he's a very funny guy, and would make practice very fun at times, and just great to be around, and very smart. So, and then at Sacred Heart, Lucius, this freshman, who's from Long Island, also he's a funny guy.
And then my last rapid fire question for you: what is your favorite hometown restaurant in Setauket, New York?
Domo Sushi.
You a big sushi guy?
Sushi guy? Ooh.
I like it a lot. Yeah, I'm a fan. I like it.
Word. All right, so this starting five edition, if you were a coach assembling a starting five, 1 through 5, you're a great defender. So I want to know who you want on your starting five. You can include yourself, but it's going to be best defenders you've played with in your career.
Pure defensive. Yeah, I'll go myself at the 5. This is tough. 2 really good 4s. I mean, Matt Folger, who was a former Middlebury player, is really good shot blocker, so that'd be tough for teams to score against. But David Brennan's such a beast on the glass. He kind of shortens possession. So I'll go DB at the 4, and I'll go Matt at the 3 because he can shoot the ball and guard the 3 well enough. And then I'll go Raheem at the 2, Raheem Solomon, just because he's a good ball hawk and he's good at navigating screens and he's not going to get blown by ever. And then defensive 1. I'll go Griffin Cornicker at the 1. I think he was a good defender.
He was at Middlebury or Sacred Heart?
He was in Middlebury when I was my freshman year. Yeah.
Oh, word. Well, that's going to do it for another episode of Not Even D2. We appreciate you joining the show. You've been an awesome guest.
Appreciate it. That was awesome. Thanks, guys.
Best of luck, bro, in the future.
Thank you.
We didn't get to talk about it, but during the break, Alex told us he's going to be playing for We Are D3 in the TBT, which Sam Peak is also. So definitely be sure to tune into them boys.
Yeah. Well, maybe we'll get some kickback if we do win the $1 million to the D3 media like you guys.
Word.
Let's go. All right. Good luck, bro.
Yeah. See you guys.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Not Even D2. If you haven't already, make sure to go follow all the socials at Not Even D2. You can catch every episode on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. I'm your host, KJ Allison, and I'll see you next episode.